KJ. Ugh. Anyway, thank you, KJ. Thank you, Madonna. Here's the last lecture of the day. Oh my goodness. So the name of the lecture is Unsolicited Advice. It's my senior lecture that you never asked for, and this will essentially be 30 minutes of tips, advice, experiences, and words of farewell for someone not going anywhere. So, this is not a handbook nor some philosophical list of objective ways to succeed in residency. I do not wish to lead you astray. This lecture is simply meant to be thought-provoking, perhaps inspiring for you at any level of your residency experience and beyond. So yeah, this is kind of my reflection. So take it with a grain of salt. So let's start at the very beginning. March 2020, as KJ said, the world has completely flipped upside down, stuck at home, and not 1 week into lockdown comes match day. So here I am, awkwardly getting my match results on my laptop from home with my parents. Very, very strange day. But finally, some certainty in the furious land of uncertainty, a match residency at Kings County. Then I sat for 3 months, just sitting, doing modules, which was the most productive part of my day. All those plans to travel to Europe and to go to the Southwest to go backpacking with leaders in wilderness medicine in the field, completely taken away. Not the best way to finish medical school and get ourselves prepared for residency to start, but hey, count your blessings, be grateful for your health and safety, and keep moving forward. Then there's virtual graduation. Just no. I do not recommend it. Not interested. That was a weird experience. I mean, to not see all of my med school friends graduating and celebrating together was bizarre, and I highly do not recommend. But then finally, some light in a time of darkness and confusion. Y'all, this is how we met each other, us baby interns, class of 2024. The timestamp is in the bottom right, March 29th, 2020, zooming from all over the country to say hello. It was bizarre, but I thought a pretty poignant way for all of us to start our experience. We jump into orientation and we get silly as hell. I kind of love how big all of our smiles are, happy to be doctors, happy to have a residency fam, and not knowing exactly what we're going to get ourselves into. And not us literally wearing masks on the beach, 100 degrees, because we are healthcare heroes and need to be good role models for mask wearing. Guys, these are wild times. Here we are again, looking fabulous. Oh, and then falling asleep right afterwards because I don't like to day drink. And this is how I remember 2020. A lot of PPE, a lot of uncertainty, a MICU filled with COVID patients, and trying to call family members on the iPad and hearing them wail as they see their patient for or their family member for the first time, like intubated in a bed. Just so many memories that I am not willing to unlock and revisit, and I truly feel that intern year was a blur and is probably going to stay that way. 2021 brought some hope with the first COVID vaccine coming out in December 2020. There were the ups and the downs, but we finally felt protected from COVID, and had to deal with each subsequent surge with grace as patients came in panicking and bringing a lot of vaccine skepticism. It was a really tough time taking care of critically ill patients who were adamantly against the vaccine. Just a lot of cognitive fatigue during this time. And then second year and 2022 hit. So here are two photos of me in 2022. I bring this up because this year was just not it. I was just not happy, just was not a good time. Anyone who saw me, and I'm a very like vulnerable and open person with these things, and like when people would, I would just be like, no, I'm not okay. Like this is none of this is makes sense. None of this makes me feel good. And it was like a whole new world of pressure and stress on an already stressed out medical system that we all had to grapple with. And being sent to all corners of the hospital with very little control or autonomy, which brings me security and happiness, gave me some moods. This is all to say that, yes, residency is hard. There are some rough patches, and my sharing my vulnerabilities and experiences with you all is meant to show that every single one of us has those dips in residency. Some more than others, but everyone will have those dips. Although I don't live with primary depression, I can safely say that during this interval of time, I now articulate this time as secondary depressed mood because I knew in my heart that the circumstances surrounding my depressed mood and inability to get off of the couch between shifts was in due to residency and the pure amount of hours we are expected to work, and living in a city that still was feeling very bare bones and cold during COVID because it wasn't quite open to like experiencing it the way that we are experiencing it now. And I want to be able to give some tips that may help you feel supported and not so isolated and alone throughout this process, and also some interpersonal and work life tips that I found super helpful in my time here. So, we'll kick it off with our first one. The first thing I'd like to suggest is that efficient note writing is the true work hack to satisfaction at work. If you can write your notes comprehensively and efficiently, it will take you away from your desk, give you more time with your patients, give you more time helping or guiding your colleagues, and get you off of shift on time. I'm pretty notorious about leaving on shift on time as frequently as I can. And I truly think that getting your notes done during the time that you're at work and getting them done when you see the patient or doing them like the hour or two before you sign out is like integral to how I get out on time. Sitting at your computer is so robotic and dystopian in a field where we are meant to be with patients and thinking about how to best manage them. So you have to find your style of how you write notes and how to do this quickly. My suggestion is really master dot phrases. They're obviously available in Epic, and they're also fully functioning at Downstate now since the last update, right in time for me to not work there. In my opinion, a proper review of systems with pertinent positive and negatives in your HPI helps you both explain the patient's risk factors and presentation, but also helps you to understand what pathology you are trying to evaluate for as you come up with your plan. So what I do is I have a lot of these dot phrases that have like negative pertinence for are commonly seen things. So if I'm in my head, I have someone with shortness of breath and I'm trying to just convey that I don't think it's a PE, I have this dot phrase and I've asked them these questions. I ask the same questions for all of my patients, so I know that I've asked them. And then I can go back, and if one of those is positive, I'll just take that out from the no portion of my HPI. And I know some people don't like this because they don't think you're going to go back and do it, but I just have this in my mind. This is what I do, and this is my practice. And so I don't forget to take out those pertinent negatives when they are positive. And so this for me helps me to just dot phrase my pertinent negatives, dot and get all that in my HPI to convey to the reader and to convey to everyone that like I have thought about this diagnosis and I have evaluated for this diagnosis, and that's what I do for my HPI. And I think you basically, what I do is I include the patient's chief complaint, duration of symptoms, intensity of symptoms, and then the associated symptoms is basically your review of systems. So this is my way to write an HPI in like less than 45 seconds. Um, so heuristics or mental shortcuts used to simplify problems and avoid cognitive overload. So that's the definition of it. At some point, these heuristics will help you become an efficient doctor, and then it'll make you a bad doctor. So just be careful and be cognizant of how this happens and how this evolves over time in residency. So, categorizing your chest pains, your fever, your abdominal pain, or other common ER visits helps you to quickly make a plan for patients. But this will inevitably have you ordering more labs than necessary in some cases and misdiagnosis for other patients. So, junior residents can start implementing this tool of categorizing patients once they have seen enough patients to notice these trends in patient care. And then around your third year, when you're trying to increase your speed with seeing patients, you realize you may be taking too many shortcuts. You present a patient to your attending, and they're like, "You didn't think about this diagnosis," or you're you just notice that you're missing more than what you used to as a junior. Then um, and basically what happens is you're just inevitably going to narrow your differential diagnosis a little too far. And so by fourth year, you start to be skeptical of your heuristics you've built. And I've been trying to overcome this through like my prefrontal reasoning with each patient, broadening my differential, stopping and really thinking, is this chest pain workup necessary in every component of it? Or am I not thinking of the other more rare, like aortic pathology that's associated with chest pain when we're only thinking about the coronaries, typically. So, um, you know, I try to just make sure that I'm treating every patient as their own independent case and not as just like a category of a case. This tip is a big one for me. There are so many times during rounds we are discussing the patient's differential. We have ruled out every pathology known to man with all of these diagnostics. I go back to the desk and realize there is no analgesia ordered for this patient with abdominal pain, chest pain, whatever. So, my tip is and advice is manage your patient's symptoms and make sure you redose. They come to the ER because they're there to have something palliated, usually. A lot of people also want reassurance and want a diagnosis, but by and large, almost every patient wants some sort of palliative experience, or they have something that is, giving them pain or suffering. Um, so what you really have to do is just make sure that you are actually like ordering something that's going to help the patient immediately. And so not having analgesia is number one, not going to help the patient at sign out or the next team at sign out because then you're kind of starting at scratch. Because if you're doing serial abdominal exams or you're seeing that there's like an improvement in their pain or symptoms, you're kind of starting at square one because maybe you've ruled out with all the blood work, but at the end of the day, if the patient has a serial abdominal exam that's not improving, then you probably should consider getting some sort of imaging. And no white count or no, you know, electrolytes are going to clue you into that. Um, so just some like my practice with like analgesia dosing is that for ibuprofen, there's a lot of studies showing that 400 milligrams for an adult patient is kind of your ceiling for analgesia. And so I order 400 for analgesia and I order 600 for anti-inflammatory properties. I basically never go to 800 unless I know that, I've talked to the patient and that's what our plan is. But this is my practice. Obviously, everyone has their own practice, but I just think that higher doses is going to have higher risk for AKI, bleeding, whatever. But so why not just use the lowest possible dose that you have with the maximum amount of effect? And for Tylenol, there are some studies that show that a 1 gram dose of Tylenol has greater pain relief over 6 hours compared to 650. And so I typically also just go to the 1 gram. You're in the ER. I'm giving you this dose. I'm not concerned about overdosing. So why not just give them the maximum analgesia and for the longest duration that they can have? And so that's what I also do for patients. Very rarely do I do 650 unless I think it's a mild pain. In that case, a mild pain, I'll give the 650 because I think it's appropriate. And then both doses have similar antipyretic effects. And then opioids, it's really good to understand not only what's available, but the dosage by mgs per kg, the onset, and the duration. I think that all of these are super important as doctors to understand and know in order to give the patient the expectation of what they're going to experience and what is the potential thing that they're going to expect with the medication you're giving. So, understanding that IV morphine is not your only choice, understanding that the duration is 3 to 5 hours, understanding that you may need to redose or that the dose was just under what is possible. So if you're giving if you just always do 4 milligrams and this patient's 110 kilograms, that's not going to be sufficient. But also maybe not giving a 10 milligram dose to a 100 kilogram person is maybe is not good either because that's kind of a higher dose. But just understanding all these parameters and not just having a set dose for analgesia, especially when things are a lot more weight-based is something that you absolutely need to do. And so this is I have this in a note on my phone. I reference it. I don't need to memorize everything, but over time, as you practice and practice, it just becomes second nature. But have those notes in your phone or whatever in order and those resources to look at. Don't feel you need to remember everything. That's not our job. And we live in a world where we have phones and resources at our disposal. But understand how to get that information as quickly as possible is kind of how I practice. I don't try to memorize everything. Consider ordering 2 doses of antibiotics that are dosed Q 6 hours. So, can anyone in the audience tell me what's a common Q6 antibiotic that we use in the ER?
Joseph.
Zoshin.
Zosyn, yep. Any others? So you've had Zosyn, which we use all the time, Unison, Cephalexin, and Meropenem if you're ever going to the big guns. So understand that most likely this patient is not going to get another dose from PIC or from S1 if they're a Q6. So what I do in my practice is I order 2 doses of an antibiotic immediately off the bat for ones like this. And please don't be that doctor who just throws 1 gram of vancomycin on a patient. So dose your vancomycin appropriately. It's 15 mg per kg for MRSA coverage for someone who's not septic, and it's 20 milligrams per kilogram for patients who are. Okay. So we really work with some incredibly kind and friendly staff. I know the beginning can be a little daunting. I remember my first year, everyone was wearing extreme PPE, staff had their badges underneath their protective gear and their gowns, and it was near impossible to get to know people. And it just felt like nurses didn't want to get to know the residents. But understanding that they have seen year after year people from outside the community coming in, training, and leaving without really caring about getting to know the nursing can really pay a toll on our co-staff members. So I really encourage you to take that little bit of time to say good morning to the nurses, even those leaving in 1 hour, because when you're getting on at 7 a.m., they have 1 more hour left. And they're at the very last hour of their 12-hour shift. Say hello, come in and just give them that last little boost to help them through the last hour of the day. They're going to like it. And then also when the next staff comes in. So at 9 a.m., I do a little rounds and just basically say hello to all the nurses because I want everyone to be on the same page. It is our responsibility as a doctor to lead the room, manage the room, and create that dynamic with everybody, just because of the sheer dynamic of the hierarchy of everything and just the perceived hierarchy of everything. So I really encourage you to get to know every single patient in this ER over the 4 years that you're here. PCAs, transport, radiology, clerical staff, that huge social work and care management team that comes by every single shift at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., hospital police, and patient relations staff. This will help you in your experience. Do not feel isolated from these people because they're have the same exact mission and goal as you do. Um, can't remember. There's a quote: "A person's name is the sweetest sound they can hear." This is incredibly true. You'll notice it. If you use a nurse's name, they will perk up. It's just natural. They're going to look at you and see that you're trying your best to get to know them. And if you can't remember their name, check Epic. Everyone is signed in, and names are associated with patients by section. So just click it by nurse. You'll see that it goes. You'll be able to identify who it is and go over there and just introduce yourself if you haven't met them, or just use their name if you've met them a few times. Um, if you don't recognize someone in the pod behind the desk, introduce yourself and make them feel welcomed, or kick them out. They're probably a rotator or an intern you haven't met, and welcoming them is going to create an environment of camaraderie, and you'll be able to set expectations and create a group work dynamic to get the job done of seeing all the immense people in the pod. And if they aren't a rotator or an intern, they're probably some wandering patients, so send them back to their bed. Show compassion to patients. Make jokes with them. Give them an enjoyable experience. By and large, in my opinion, medicine, especially in the pod, is 10% making medical decisions about patient care and 90% about making someone feel seen, heard, listened to, engaged with, and cared for. So make eye contact. Come into the room slowly. Speak slowly and clearly, and set expectations for that patient right at the beginning of that initial encounter. And make sure you update them. If you get lab values back that this patient has been nervous about, go and tell them. Like, give them updates. I'm telling you, if you give them 2 or 3 updates over the experience, they're going to feel so heard and seen and appreciated that they're not going to be as agitated to leave, or they're going to trust you that your plan and your intentions are at the center of their best intentions. Um, I would say resist the urge to pick and choose which marginalized populations you're comfortable caring for. Because at some point, all of you have put into an application that you prioritize caring for marginalized, under-resourced, or underprivileged populations. And over time, you may realize that this mission or goal is challenging as you put yourself through emotional turmoil to interact with some of humanity's most oppressive forces, including poverty, addiction, psychiatric illness, and whatnot. What I want to impress upon you all is when you say all patients deserve high quality care, you really have to reflect and decide if you truly believe this mission to be true at your heart. And to stop and think about your initial goal when you are judging someone for coming in for the 10th time this month, or coming in with an overdose, like an opioid overdose, after getting Sublocade injections over 2 months and seemingly looking like they were a success story, and then coming in overdosed. Stop and think that addiction and diabetes and all of these chronic conditions are going to have ebbs and flows, and we are probably seeing them on the lower portion of that, and to not judge them for them just presenting to the ER in crisis again. Um, Protect yourself with 2 arms length of distance from patients, so when they swing or kick, you'll be out of the line of fire. The harsh reality is that we are in the line of fire of agitated and aggressive patients, and likely all of us are going to be the victim of some kind of physical assault on top of the almost daily verbal assault that we endure. As someone who has gone through multiple incidents on medicine, I had a patient throw a phone at me, an IV pole has been thrown at me, and a patient punched me in the face in third year. My advice is to stay 2 arm lengths away from your patients. It's enough that you still give that patient all of your attention and that intimacy, but far enough away from any swinging limbs. And that is my practice at this point. Um, and have an eye for agitated patients in the ER. See those patients earlier rather than later and de-escalate early. I have gotten so like far fewer agitated patients in fourth year because I see them come up on the board or I see them coming in from 2 hallway and I see them immediately and I send either a resident there or I go see the patient right away because because a lot of residents are going to think, oh, I don't want to see that patient, they're agitated. But guess what? That's going to make them more agitated and it's going to cause an even further problems down the line. These 3 night attendings may end up teaching you more about how to deal with medically complicated patients, intoxicated patients, and agitated ones than maybe anyone else. I just wanted to show these photos and give them a shout out. Nothing else. Um, you're only going to get to know the junior residents if you make the effort. So be the senior resident you would have wanted when you were a junior. That can look like a range of different approaches and style, but by and large, we all want to feel welcomed and part of a clan. So my residency hack is getting to know juniors at the time when they are most available and when they are most impressionable in July in orientation. So this is, welcoming the class 2025. You'll see a lot of my class there in scrubs coming from shift, or in my case, in scrubs about to go to shift. And we really wanted to make them feel welcome, so we really wanted to go. And look how nervous they all are in the back. I remember being really tired this day, but I wanted to support the interns, and so I went out and did our pickleback shots for the Intern Welcome 2022. And here we are this year during Social EM Day, where I got to know all the intern babies this year. And so, a lot of people say, I don't know the interns. I just haven't met them. I don't understand. The opportunity to meet them is there. It's July. So make an effort and just try to welcome them. I'm telling you, they're going to appreciate it for the entire year. Um, don't let anyone treat you like shit and stand up for yourself. So you develop your confidence in what you're saying through residency when it comes to endorsing patients for admission or for a new consult. And you also develop an eye for recognizing when someone is not treating you well or is taking advantage of you during those endorsements. People all over the hospital have their own motives for how they act and what they need to get done, but there's no excuse for someone treating you disrespectfully. Full stop. Do not stand for this. You need to make it known that you are someone that deserves respect and to be spoken to as an intelligent and well-intentioned colleague. A good tip is to kill people with kindness and to always bring it back to the top priority at hand, patient care. Those are kind of my 2 tips. This leads me into this tip. So pick your fights with your consultants, MAR, PIC, because you don't want to be known as that resident that comes 10 out of 10 every single time. People will notice and people are going to start getting, they're going to be aware that you're that resident that's doing that. Oh my God, I didn't mean to put that photo in there. Um, so be a little mysterious. We may have a really touchy-feely residency with transparency and support, and that's one of the best things about a residency. But just remember that medicine is still a business, and you want to hold your cards a little closer to your chest than you may want to. Just remember that this is your career. Everyone is watching, so but at the same time, show vulnerability with your co-residents, your juniors. Vulnerability and honesty will bring you closer to your co-residents, and they're going to be the ones who have your back the most. They are devoted to your well-being and your ability to thrive. So lean on them and support each other. Again, you are not alone in this process, and the people and faces on this Zoom are here for you. Residency is incredibly isolating, as I have said. Try not to let it completely consume you. You may feel like the most overwhelmed and stressed out person in the entire world. You may feel inadequate, overworked, depressed, emotionally, and the thing is, so has every other person in this residency. Remember, countless of others have completed an emergency residency program and a Kings County emergency medicine program, and so will you. Um, Anyone who knows me knows that dancing makes me incredibly happy and is something I prioritize to release tension in my body and feel connected to music and those around me. So I would say dancing is a wonderful option and way to bring happiness into your life. One study that I found on Twitter, so I didn't actually find the article. I'm literally just putting this up there because it's on Twitter. One study found that it's not just that exercise beats out SSRIs for depression treatment, but that just dancing had the largest effect of any treatment for depression. And I'm always looking for some sort of reason to keep dancing. So just putting this out there. I don't even know what the study is, but here you go. Um, Call your loved ones. And it's not because they need to hear from you, but believe me when I say this, you're going to want to hear from them. Despite despite all that I was going through, like huh, just look how happy I genuinely look with my nieces, my brothers. Just makes sense. So don't neglect yourself and call your loved ones even when you're sitting on the couch and you're feeling horrible. Ah, so this is my last advice. So residency is only going to be the experience that you want if you put the energy and attention towards it. So if you want residency to be a certain way, it starts with you. If you want more teaching at your residency, then you have to teach more. If you want to feel closer to your co-residents, make plans with them. If you want your nursing staff and medical staff to have a better relationship, create that better relationship. If you want the best residency experience you can have, commit yourself to bringing that energy to residency. Residency and life is what you make of it, and Kings County is a special place, and your co-residents will appreciate and see your efforts to contribute and leave your mark on the residency. This is not some like thing that just exists and is here for you. You're a part of it and you need to contribute to it in order to keep it going and thriving, and it's going to come back tenfold, and that's truly how I feel about this place. So residency is hard, and these levies make it just a little bit better. Going to a Yankees game when someone says that, they have tickets. Going and seeing seeing KJ in the going to get Uber Eats in the hotel at ASAP in her jammies. Going on a retreat when you have the opportunity, and making fun of your co-residents because why not? Um, that's about it, y'all. Um, Thank you for this opportunity. Y'all are great. And that's my family on both sides. Look at that. 11:50.